Good morning, children. In the previous classes, we tried to understand the events which occurred between 1938 to 1942, and out of them, the most prominent one was the passing of the Government of India Act 1935, through which elections were conducted in the provincial assemblies with minimum voting rights given to very few people. Today we shall learn about the Quit India movement during the 1942, and the famous slogan given during this Quit India movement was do or die. This is a famous slogan given during this period, that is in 1942, which has begun when all the leaders, all the prominent leaders were in jail. And it was also the period when Second World War was going on at a world platform. Even Britain also participated in the Second World War. And Britain wanted to use the Indian people, Indian money and Indian soldiers in order to participate in the Second World War. So Congress demanded that in return for their support, they should be given the complete freedom for them. Okay, we'll support you in the Second World War, but after the end of the war, you should give us the freedom. The government was in no mood to accept the demand of the Congress Working Committee. So they have met on August 8th, 1942 at Bombay and passed a resolution stating clearly that British rule in India should come to an end immediately. And the evening after the Quit India resolution was passed, Mahatma Gandhi has made a speech, made a address, making it a memorable words. Every one of you should feel from now onwards that you are free, yourself free from all kinds of nature, and consider men and women and act as if you are free. So I am not going to be satisfied with anything short of that complete freedom. We shall do or die, and we shall either free India or die in the attempt of making India free. So in the early hours of August 9th, the next day morning of 1942, the government arrested most of the Congress leaders like Gandhiji, Patel, Nehru, Maulana Azad, Acharya Kripalani, Rajendra Prasad, and many other people were arrested by the government and put in the jail. The people had started their protest with the hartals. Hartal means strike. So they started strikes and processions, rallies taken all over the country. So unfortunately, the movement turned out to be violent also, because all the leaders were in the jail and nobody was there to guide them, and it has turned out to be violent. The working class in the factories have boycotted their factory, their work. They kept down their tools, and students boycotted the colleges and institutions, and many of the students attacked government offices like police stations, railway stations, and telegraph office, post offices. So they had cut off the telephone wires even. So they burnt government buildings even, and government vehicles, government carriages, railway carriages. Madras and Bombay were the most affected areas in the entire country. So the British authority disappeared in most parts of the Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Odisha, West Bengal, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh. And in Midnapur, people had set up a parallel government also during 1942 to 1944, because you must understand one more thing. Why British could not suppress all these revolts mean they were busy in attacking Germany there. There was a Second World War going on, so British officers were very busy in the World War. So as a result of this movement, 10 lakh pounds of worth of property got damaged in the country. 30 police personnel and 10 army men also lost their lives. And many people were also killed. Thousands were arrested in the process, and there was a lot of violence which has taken place during this period. And by the end of the 1943, over 90,000 people were arrested, and over 1,01,000 people got killed in the police firing. And in many areas, orders were also given not to given to machine gun crowds from the public places and from the aeroplanes also. And the rebellion, however, ultimately brought the British Raj to the knees, and they started making negotiations for transfer of power. That means slowly the steps were going on to make the independence. And towards the independence, meanwhile in 1940, the Muslim League had moved a resolution demanding independent states of the Muslim majority areas on the northwestern side as well as the northeastern side of India. So why did the League ask for an independent autonomous arrangement for the Muslims in the subcontinent? From the late 1930s, Muslims of the subcontinent began viewing Muslims population as a separate vote bank or separate nation and from the Hindus. In developing that notion, Muslim League was successful, and this has influenced by the history of the tension between the Hindus and Muslims groups in the country. This was further fueled, and people started asking for a separate nation. And most importantly, the provincial elections of 1937 seemed to have convinced the Muslim League that Muslims were in minority and they can never become majority in the country. So they have to play a second fiddle in any democratic setup because they are minority in nature. So it feared most of the Muslims even go unrepresented. They may even go unrepresented, and their interest may not be addressed by the democratic governments which are dominated by Hindus. So the Congress rejection of the League's desire to form a joint government in the United Province also triggered the anger between the Hindus and Muslims, and it annoyed Muslim League and the Muslim population in the country. The Congress failure to mobilize the Muslims masses in 1930s allowed the League to widen its base, and it started becoming a sole representative of the Indian Muslims. So when most of the Congress leaders were in jail at the end of the war in 1945, the British opened negotiations between the Congress, the League and themselves for India and its independence. The talks failed because the League did not agree. League saw itself as the sole spokesperson of the Muslims. The Congress could not accept that argument, and they claimed since a large number of Muslims still supported Congress also. And elections to the provinces were held again in 1946, and the Congress did well in general seats, constituencies, but the League success in the Muslim reserved seats made this Muslim League as a sole representative of the Muslims. So it persisted with the demand of Pakistan, and in March 1946, the British cabinet sent a 3-member committee called as a cabinet mission with Stanford Cripps, Patrick Lawrence and Alexander to Delhi to examine this demand and to suggest a suitable framework for India's independence. The mission suggested that India will remain united, but with 3 autonomous areas was suggested by them. So whether that was a successful plan given by them or not, which we shall understand in the further classes about its success, and we shall also see how the government failed to address the problems and continue itself as a loose confederation with some authority for Muslim majority areas. But it could not get the Congress and Muslim League to agree to this specific details of the proposal. Partition now became more or less inevitable. So in the next class we shall see about how the partition has taken place. Thank you, children.